Ethan Cole had everything money could buy, yet nothing that truly filled the silence of his penthouse. From the outside he was untouchable, a tech billionaire with a reputation for brilliance and an almost mythical avoidance of women. Parties bored him, conversations drained him, and even the idea of love felt like an inconvenience he could do without. His days were precise. Early morning workouts, back-to-back meetings, and meticulous attention to projects that fueled his empire. But by night, the grandeur of his apartment felt hollow. The walls echoed with emptiness, and even the city lights outside his window failed to bring warmth. Ethan didn't hate women. He simply feared what he didn't understand. Connection, vulnerability, and the unpredictable tides of affection were territories he had never navigated, and never intended to. Yet change, as life often does, has a way of arriving unannounced. His assistant, the ever-persistent Caroline, had finally convinced him that he needed a private chef. "For your health, Ethan," she insisted, eyes bright with subtle mischief. "Someone who can bring more than just food, someone who might make this place feel alive." Ethan's first thought was a polite refusal. He didn't need people meddling in his routines. But a small part of him, the part he never admitted even to himself, curiously wondered what it would feel like to have someone bring a little warmth to the monotony. And so the stage was set. The doorbell rang that afternoon, echoing through the penthouse, and Ethan realized he had no idea what to expect. A stranger was about to enter his life, and perhaps, unknowingly, his heart. The door opened and Lila Hart stepped in, carrying nothing but a small basket of fresh ingredients and an air of effortless confidence. She smiled warmly, a contrast to the cool sterility of Ethan's penthouse. Her presence seemed to brighten the room instantly, though Ethan, ever reserved, only nodded politely. "I'm Lila," she said, her voice light and genuine. "You must be Ethan. I hope I'm not intruding." He shook her hand awkwardly, more out of habit than comfort. "You're on time," he muttered, unable to muster much more. From the very first moments, Lila moved with ease around his kitchen, unpacking vegetables, arranging herbs, and asking subtle questions about his preferences. Ethan observed quietly, fascinated by the way someone could treat a kitchen like an art studio. He had hired a chef before, but none had carried this kind of warmth, this ease that felt almost like sunlight in his dim apartment. As they worked side by side, something small shifted. A hand accidentally brushed his while reaching for a spice jar. Lila didn't pull away, she simply smiled, apologizing softly. Ethan felt an unfamiliar flutter, a gentle stirring he couldn't name. He cleared his throat and looked away, pretending the sensation didn't exist. By the end of the afternoon, dinner was ready, a simple yet delicious creation that smelled like care itself. Ethan hesitated before thanking her, then found himself giving a small, uncharacteristic hug, a quiet gesture that lingered just long enough to feel sincere. Lila returned it, unafraid, and stepped back with a bright grin. For the first time in years, Ethan realized that life didn't have to be only about schedules and work. Perhaps, connection was possible. And perhaps this stranger, with her warmth and ease, was the first step towards something he had never dared to imagine. The next morning, Ethan found himself waiting, uncharacteristically, for Lila to arrive. He hadn't admitted it, probably wouldn't, but he looked forward to her presence, the way she moved through the penthouse like it belonged to her as much as him. Lila stepped in with her usual bright smile and a basket of fresh herbs. "Good morning, Ethan. I thought we could start the day with something light. Smoothies, maybe a fresh salad?" Ethan nodded, silently impressed that she remembered his past preferences without him ever mentioning them. As they worked together, something unspoken grew between them. The kitchen, once a place of routine and order, now felt alive with laughter, conversation, and the occasional gentle brush of hands. When Ethan reached for the same jar of cinnamon that Lila was holding, their fingers touched. He froze, but she only smiled and said softly, "It's okay. Here, let me help." The gesture was simple, yet it carried a warmth Ethan hadn't felt in years. By midday, the first meal they'd prepared together was ready. They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, enjoying the fruits of their shared effort. Ethan caught himself studying Lila, the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed, the effortless way she carried herself. He realized he wanted to see more of this side of life, the side where he wasn't just the untouchable millionaire but a man capable of feeling and being seen. Before she left, Ethan did something impulsive. A small, quick hug, a gesture of gratitude for more than just the meal, lingered longer than necessary. Lila didn't pull away, returning it with gentle ease, as if silently acknowledging the connection forming between them. That night, as Ethan reclined in his penthouse chair, he realized something profound. Perhaps life wasn't meant to be lived in isolation. Perhaps, with someone like Lila, it could feel a little brighter. The penthouse smelled of roasted garlic and fresh basil, a comfort Ethan hadn't realized he was craving. Lila hummed softly as she plated their meal, her focus effortless yet calming. Ethan, usually reserved even in his thoughts, found himself lingering in the doorway watching her move. "I never realized cooking could feel like storytelling," he said quietly, surprising even himself. Lila looked up, her eyes warm. "It's all about the intention, Ethan. Every ingredient has a part to play, just like every moment in life." For a moment, silence filled the kitchen, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that invited honesty, the kind that hinted at stories waiting to be shared. Lila smiled softly. "I grew up in a small town. My family always cooked together. Food was love, celebration, even apology sometimes. I guess I carry that with me now." Ethan found himself drawn into her story. When she spoke of her parents' little kitchen arguments, the laughter that followed, the way meals could bring people closer, he felt a tug at something he had buried, longing, maybe, or a curiosity about connection he had never allowed himself to explore. "Sounds comforting," he admitted, a rare vulnerability in his tone. Lila's smile widened and she stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "It's never too late to have that, Ethan." Before she left that evening, Ethan did something instinctive, something he didn't usually do with anyone. He hugged her. It wasn't long or extravagant, just a quiet, sincere embrace. Lila returned it, her presence steady and reassuring. In that brief moment, words weren't necessary, the gesture said enough. As Lila waved goodbye, Ethan realized the apartment no longer felt empty. It felt possible. Possible that someone could enter his carefully guarded world and make him feel seen, understood, and, for the first time in years, genuinely alive. Rain streaked down the windows of Ethan's penthouse, tapping softly against the glass like a gentle reminder that life moved on, even when he tried to stay still. Ethan stood by the window, hands tucked in his pockets, staring at the city below. Normally he would have avoided anyone seeing him in this quiet, reflective state, but today he felt strangely exposed. Lila, carrying a tray with hot cocoa and a few pastries, paused at the doorway. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice warm, inviting. Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "Sure." She set the tray down and leaned against the counter, her eyes on the rain. For a while neither spoke. Then softly Lila said, "Do you ever feel stuck, Ethan? Like no matter how much you accomplish, something's missing?" He swallowed hard, unsure why the question made his chest tighten. Finally, in a voice quieter than he intended, he admitted, "Sometimes. More than I'd like to admit." Lila moved a little closer, just enough that their shoulders brushed. "It's okay," she whispered. "You don't have to hide it." Ethan looked at her, and for the first time he didn't pull back. He told her, haltingly, about his childhood, his fear of vulnerability, the loneliness he carried despite all his wealth. Lila listened, never interrupting, offering no advice, just understanding. When he finished, he felt the weight of the words lift slightly. Lila reached out and gave him a gentle hug, holding him for a moment longer than a simple courtesy. Ethan stiffened at first, then relaxed, letting himself feel the comfort he had long denied. As she stepped back, smiling softly, Ethan realized something profound. This stranger, this chef, was making him reconsider everything he thought he knew about connection, trust, and even love. For the first time in years, the world outside didn't feel so lonely. Ethan had never been nervous about business dinners before. He ran meetings with the precision of a surgeon, charming investors and partners alike without effort. Yet tonight, with Lila in charge of the menu, he felt a strange tension coil in his chest. Lila moved through the kitchen with quiet confidence, arranging appetizers and tasting sauces with meticulous care. Her focus was effortless, her charm natural. Even in the chaos of last-minute adjustments, she radiated calm. Ethan found himself stealing glances, a mixture of admiration and something he couldn't yet name stirring inside him. The guests arrived and Lila's dishes spoke louder than any words. Compliments flowed freely, laughter echoed, and for the first time Ethan noticed the subtle pride swelling inside him, not for himself but for her. She had brought warmth and life to his sterile, orderly world. Later, when the dinner ended, the guests departed, and the penthouse settled into quiet again, Ethan lingered. Lila was cleaning up, humming softly. He stepped closer, instinctively brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. "Thank you," he said, his voice low but sincere. "For tonight, and everything." She looked up, her smile soft but knowing, and without hesitation, leaned in for a comforting hug. Ethan stiffened for a moment, then melted into it, feeling the tension of the evening ease with the simplicity of human connection. When she pulled back, their eyes met, and Ethan realized that this wasn't just appreciation for a meal well cooked. It was something more, a spark of care, of admiration, of trust growing between them. That night, as he stood by the window once more, the city lights reflected off the rain-slicked streets, Ethan understood something he hadn't before. Warmth, laughter, and shared moments could exist even in a life built on wealth and walls. And perhaps, with Lila, they could exist permanently. The countryside was quiet, almost impossibly so compared to the constant hum of the city. Ethan's penthouse felt worlds away as he followed Lila down a winding path, the autumn air crisp and fragrant with fallen leaves. He had never admitted it to anyone, not even himself, but the stillness was soothing. "This is beautiful," he said quietly, eyes scanning the rolling hills. Lila smiled, brushing a leaf from her sleeve. "I thought you could use a break from the chaos. Just a couple of days to breathe, cook, and enjoy simple things." Ethan nodded, though he felt uncharacteristically awkward. He was used to controlling everything, scheduling every moment, but here he felt the freedom to simply exist, to watch, to listen. Inside the cozy cabin, Lila took over the kitchen, yet invited him to participate. They chopped vegetables side by side, stirred sauces together, and even laughed when Ethan accidentally flipped a pancake onto the floor. Small touches, the brush of her hand as she corrected his technique, the warmth of her smile, made Ethan's chest tighten in a way he didn't understand. Later they walked along a narrow trail, leaves crunching beneath their feet. Ethan noticed how natural it felt to walk beside her, how easy it was to talk without pretense. At one point, Lila stumbled slightly on a slick patch of leaves and Ethan caught her. They shared a brief, steady hug. Nothing rushed, nothing forced, but it lingered just long enough to speak volumes without words. As the sun dipped behind the hills, Ethan realized he hadn't thought about his apartment, his work, or the empire waiting for him. For the first time he wanted only the present moment, with her. That night, as they cooked dinner together by the fire, laughter spilling into the cozy cabin, Ethan felt a truth settle quietly in his chest. Life could be different. Life could be brighter. And perhaps, with Lila, it finally could be shared. Back in the city, Ethan returned to his penthouse with a sense of calm he hadn't felt in years. Lila arrived shortly after, carrying a basket of fresh ingredients and her usual radiant smile. She had a way of turning even the most ordinary apartment into a home, and Ethan found himself craving it more than he wanted to admit. That afternoon, a client from one of Ethan's business ventures stopped by unannounced. She complimented Lila on her cooking, her laugh light and flirtatious. Ethan noticed the way Lila's eyes sparkled in response, and an unfamiliar pang twisted in his chest. It was subtle at first, a tightening of the stomach, a quick glance, but it grew stronger the longer he watched. "I see you're making friends already," he said quietly, his voice carefully measured. Lila looked at him, a hint of amusement in her expression. "Oh, it's nothing serious. Just polite conversation." Ethan cleared his throat, turning away for a moment, trying to ignore the unexpected swirl of emotion. He realized, with startling clarity, that he didn't like the idea of anyone else receiving the warmth he had come to treasure from her. Later, after the client left, Lila noticed his distant demeanor. "Something on your mind?" she asked gently. He hesitated, unaccustomed to speaking about feelings he barely understood. I think I care more than I expected," he admitted awkwardly. "And I don't know how to handle it." Lila stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on his arm. "That's okay," she said softly. "Feeling deeply isn't something to fear. It's part of what makes life, life." Ethan felt a strange relief wash over him as they shared a brief, steady hug. It wasn't dramatic, just quiet and grounding, yet it said everything words could not. In that embrace, he realized the truth. He wanted Lila, not as a hired chef but as someone irreplaceable in his life. For the first time, Ethan understood that love wasn't a threat. It was a possibility, and he was ready to explore it. Ethan's penthouse smelled of fresh herbs and warm bread, the comforting aroma of Lila's cooking filling every corner. Tonight was different, not a business dinner, not a rushed meal, but a quiet evening she had planned just for him. He watched her move through the kitchen, the way her hands worked with effortless grace, how she smiled softly at the sizzling pans. Ethan realized he had been holding back for too long, guarding emotions that now felt impossible to ignore. When she finished plating, she turned to him with a bright grin. "Dinner's ready," she said. Ethan swallowed, his usual composure faltering. "Thank you, for everything," he said, words heavier than they seemed. Lila stepped closer, her warmth enveloping him. "You don't need to thank me, Ethan. I like being here. With you." For a moment, silence filled the room, the only sound the soft crackle from the oven. Then, instinctively, Ethan reached out and they embraced. It wasn't brief this time, it was steady, unhurried, a hug that carried gratitude, trust, and the fragile beginnings of love. He felt the tension in his chest ease, the walls he had built over years slowly crumbling. Lila rested her head lightly against his shoulder, and Ethan realized he wanted this, not fleetingly, not casually, but permanently. When they finally pulled back, their eyes met and words weren't needed. The air between them hummed with unspoken understanding. They had crossed a threshold. Connection had become something tangible, something real. That night, as Ethan stood by the window afterward, the city lights mirrored the warmth in his chest. For the first time he imagined a life shared with someone else, a life filled with laughter, comfort, and mutual care. And he knew, with a clarity that surprised him, that he would never take it for granted. The penthouse was quiet, but it felt alive in a way it never had before. Ethan sat at the kitchen island, watching Lila as she arranged a small bouquet of fresh herbs in a vase. The sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the gold in her hair, and for the first time, he realized that the world outside wasn't the only thing worth noticing. "Lila," he began, voice tentative, unusual for a man so used to control. She looked up, meeting his gaze with her steady, warm eyes. I've never been good at this," he admitted, "but I need to say it. I care about you. More than I've ever cared about anyone. You've changed the way I see everything. I don't want to imagine life without you in it." Lila's lips curved into a soft smile, her eyes glistening slightly. She stepped closer, and before words could fail them, they shared a long, heartfelt hug. It wasn't a gesture of gratitude or comfort this time, it was a promise, an affirmation of what they both felt. Pulling back slightly, Lila whispered, "Ethan, I care about you too. You've opened your heart to me and I've never felt so at home anywhere. I want to be with you, always." Ethan's chest tightened with happiness, relief, and something he hadn't dared feel before, love. The walls he had built around himself weren't gone, but they no longer mattered. With Lila he didn't have to hide. He could be himself, fully and completely. They spent the evening together, cooking, laughing, and planning small future moments, quiet dinners, weekend trips, and shared mornings. It wasn't grand gestures or dramatic confessions that defined their love, but the gentle, steady presence of each other's hearts. And in that penthouse, once cold and silent, Ethan finally understood what it meant to be truly alive. With Lila by his side, he knew life could be brighter, warmer, and infinitely more meaningful.